Hello and welcome to Latika Takes, a podcast with me, Latika Berg. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. As devoted, loyal, keen followers and listeners of my podcast, which I know you all are, of course, you will recognise today's guest. It's one of the handful of people I've had back on the podcast, Margus Tsahkna, the Estonian Foreign Minister. You might remember, actually, our podcast interview, not last year, the year before, generated quite a stir because it was the two of us that began first publicly discussing about whether non-NATO countries might contribute to some sort of boots-on-the-ground scenario in Ukraine. And you will remember back then Estonia was one of the biggest advocates for maybe even boots on the ground before a ceasefire, if one is ever brokered between Russia and Ukraine. That story, when we put those comments to the Australian government, they didn't rule it out. And subsequently, the Australian government kept an open mind on this idea and is part of the coalition of the willing. Now the debate, as you will hear in this interview, is about when to send in the coalition of the willing. So I was interested to gauge the views of Mr Tsahkna because Estonia is traditionally one of those Baltic countries that's really, really forthright on security and particularly the protection of Ukraine. So it may interest and it may surprise you what he says. No need for a huge introduction from me, but the reason I'm speaking with Mr Tsahkna again is because he's on his way to Australia to deepen economic and security ties between Australia and Estonia, but of course also Indo-Pacific and EU. All my happy vibes, issues and themes, as you, my loyal listener, know. Thanks always for listening. Please, by the way, if you do enjoy these conversations, rate, review and share, most importantly, with anyone you think might enjoy listening, but also if you're in the field, anyone who you think might want to come on or you could suggest to me, people I could try and interview, because I have to admit it's probably one of my favourite things I get to do is this podcast. So I'm very grateful to you for listening. All right, let's get into it. Margus Tsahkna, welcome back to the podcast.
Great that you have me, and I'm really happy about this opportunity.
Does Estonia support what Israel and the United States are doing in Iran?
We support politically in the meaning of taking down the regime, which is really dangerous for all the world and also, of course, for Europe. And the Iran regime has been one of the main supporters for Russia about the aggression against Ukraine. And in that regard, yes, we are politically supporting, but we are not a part of this war there.
Why not?
Because US is launching that together with Israel, and there is no need for that. But what we need to see is that this regime will be weaker or even will be changed by Iranian people. But of course, it's too early to say because this regime has been there like 47 years. It's really very strong. The bad thing is that what we see is that total escalation in the region. So Iran is now launching heavy attacks against all the neighbors, but also already against some NATO and European countries. I mean, Cyprus and Turkey took down this ballistic missile 2 days ago. So it seems that things are escalating there, and it's not good globally as well. One thing is about military behavior, but we see as well that the oil and energy prices are increasing heavily. And of course, it will affect as well US and President Trump. And before the elections, I think it is not good news. So we don't know exactly what are the final targets or goals for US as well. I understand what Israel is doing there because Iran has been and is direct threat for Israel, and Israel is using this opportunity heavily. It's understandable, but for US, what is the final goal? When will be finished? So we don't know that. And that's why as well, it's not only about political and military question, it's as well the economical question for Europe and I think for all the world.
I want to come back to the oil, but you mentioned there this ballistic missile attack that was attempted on Turkey. Do you see an Article 5 situation playing out potentially in the Iran-Israel war? Because Turkey is, of course, a NATO member, it's not EU, and Cyprus is not NATO, but it is EU.
Yes, Article 5 of NATO is not a button, just like you need to push and this laundry machine is starting to work. It's up to the member states to call in if it's needed, but Turkey didn't, do, didn't ask that at all. But of course, NATO was reacting for this missile attack because Turkey is a member of NATO. So if there will be the full-scale attack, invasion, and so on, then of course NATO is ready always, but there is no need for that right now, as I understand it.
I understand that, but what about in the future? Do you think this has the potential to escalate and spill over into a potential Article 5 situation? Is that something you're worried about?
I'm not worried about it because we don't see actually that Iran is having such capabilities to really wage the full-scale aggression war against Turkey or the other countries, I mean, who are the members of NATO. But of course, if the situation will be escalating, then NATO members must be ready as well to protect our territories. But I don't see it right now.
What do you believe are the effects or implications, good and or bad, for Ukraine from the Iranian conflict?
The good part is that now everybody understands that Ukraine is not only able to defend itself, but also Ukraine is delivering the security and also military capabilities. I talked to Ukraine Foreign Minister yesterday, and he said very clearly that all the Gulf region countries now are very much interested about the Ukraine technologies, capabilities, and experience, and they will send as well their experts to the region, which is a clear sign that Ukraine has as well capabilities that the other countries need. And also US has called in Ukraine to support with this expertise. And it is a clear sign what I have said already more than a couple of years that the Ukraine doesn't need only our help now and support. We definitely need to give it. But we as a Europe need Ukraine in the future as a huge resource on economical level, but also as a military experience power in Europe, the largest army with a new level experience, also innovation on military. So, and even this war in the Gulf region shows that everybody wants to get out this kind of expertise and capabilities from Ukraine as well. So it's very important that Ukraine is not only needing our help, but also they're delivering and they're ready for that. This is one thing. The second thing is that Putin has been all these years as a mob, chief in the meaning of offering protection to other dictators. But what we have witnessed during the last years is that his friends are out of office. Al-Assad in Syria is out. Venezuela, Maduro is in prison. Now the Iranian leadership, they are dead. And I think that it is harming heavily President Putin's and Russia authority in the meaning that they can protect or they can deliver any kind of political and even like military. They are not able to do anything. Even in Ukraine, they are not gaining any strategic breakthrough on the battlefield. The other way around, Ukraine has gained some territories during the last week. So I think Putin publicly as well, showing himself as a weak leader, struggling with economical problems, but also, militarily. They're not having any success. They're just wasting hundreds of thousands of their own lives. So this is something which is maybe good. The bad thing is that, of course, the attention is going away from Ukraine, and that's why we call all the other members of NATO and allies to continue to support Ukraine, keeping our eye on these talks. What we postponed, but they will continue about the peace. That this peace cannot be unjust, and also we need to support Ukraine politically. We are talking here in Europe about bringing Ukraine into the European Union, as well as giving the security guarantees to Ukraine if the peace is coming. But the attention is now in the Middle East. And as well, our military people say that now US as well putting lots of effort into this war. And we need to keep going this pull mechanism which Europe is paying and US is delivering the military equipment and systems to Ukraine they heavily need. So I do hope that these resources are not going to be wasted only in the Middle East, but also we need to continue supporting Ukraine. So there are like different aspects. But of course, the oil price is increasing heavily, and unfortunately, it is only good news for Putin. So this low price, what we witnessed during the last couple of months, really hit a Russian war machine. But now, of course, they are getting some additional resources because of the oil price. So that's the bad thing.
And you will have seen the news that President Trump has just handed Vladimir Putin a huge lifeline on the oil price because he's eased some of the sanctions on the oil. What do you make of that?
Yeah, this is something we are not happy, of course, because we need to put more pressure on Russia about the sanctions, about the oil price, because energy is the main resource for Putin. So we are trying to adopt the 20th sanction package as well in Europe about Russia.
You
Unfortunately,
say, Minister, you say you're not happy. I mean, how can you just be that restrained? This is a huge lifeline that's going to be used to fund killing more Ukrainians and jeopardizing European security. And this is from your NATO ally, the United States. How do you explain this development?
I can't explain it. I think that this is need to be explained by President Trump and US, because I said I am not happy. This is very strong word, because we are working hard to get rid of the Russian oil and gas from European side. We have been deciding that for 27 there's a total cut from the Russian energy to European Union. So if US is playing the other game, though it is not supporting Ukraine, it is supporting Russia. So it's very clear.
Do you suspect or do you think that the United States, and particularly President Trump, wants to support Putin rather than Zelensky?
I don't believe that they want to support Russia, but this is a dangerous game in the meaning of having a special relation with Russia or economical relations with Russia, because we have witnessed from the past that Putin is just using that and not stopping the aggressive behavior. And we are neighboring country here for Russia. So if Russia is continuing in Ukraine, or there will be unjust peace in Ukraine, then Russia will continue its aggressive plans. And we don't want to be on this situation that we need to fight with Russia. So, of course, it is not something which is supporting us as well if you have like a special relation with Putin. So it has been clear. But I do hope that the main thing, what Trump needs is a peace in Ukraine. But this peace cannot be on these conditions that Ukraine must give the territories and must have restrictions about their own sovereign rights and also constitutional rights, what they have there. So it's all very complicated.
Was the EU informed about, or EU member states, including yourself, obviously, were you informed about this change in the oil sanctions from the Trump administration? And will you be trying to change their mind back? And do you think you can be successful in that?
No, we were not, informed officially, but the US is doing things at the same time. Of course, as I said, we are not happy about this.
Okay, you don't sound very optimistic about being able to change their mind. One thing Estonia, actually, well, in conjunction with a lot of other countries, could do to deal with the oil is start boarding and seizing shadow fleet. America's done it. France has done it. I think Belgium has now even done it. The UK keeps talking about doing it, but we'll see. Would Baltic Sentry consider this?
Baltic Sentry is a NATO mission in the meaning of protecting the undersea cables and also protecting the region. So what we need to do if we seize the vessels and the boarding, it is about our authorities and also the Baltic Sea countries, and we have done it as well. We see more than 60% of the gas and oil export from Russia is going through the Baltic Sea, and you can imagine this 80 kilometers the corridor between Estonia and Finland. There is a territorial seas, there are economical seas, and then finally is like 6 nautical miles corridor where all this 60% is going through. So of course we are observing, we're putting more tankers under the sanctions, and also if there is a need, we bring them in. But Russia shows as well that they are ready to protect these vessels using military force. We had this experience first time last spring when Russia sent the fighter jets and even violated for a couple of seconds NATO territory. So it's very tense here. But also it's not only the economical and military question and security question, it's as well for us environmental question, because we witnessed what kind of vessels or tankers they are in very bad conditions. So if anything is happening with even one in our waters here, it will be a disaster for us environmentally as well. So, but happily, yeah, more and more countries are acting. It's very important. We didn't see that even a year ago. And
But
for
but
Russia,
Estonia,
this is
but
a real lifeline, really. Putin is really nervous about this corridor here where the 60% of oil and gas export is happening.
well, doesn't that make it all the more reason for you to take the risk and do it? I mean, for all the criticisms of Trump, he took a risk in boarding one of those Russian flag ships all the way from Venezuela up to the Atlantic and did it. And he's shown the way. And Russia did nothing, actually. So, yes, you may be worried about the escalation or the provocation or the payback, but Russia has not done a single thing to France, Belgium, or the United States when those tankers have been seized. Why are you holding back?
We are not holding back. We are following as well the rules because we are actually living like this, that we follow the rules. But of course, if there is a need, we are ready. If these tankers coming to our waters, so we are ready to do it. And we have done it. We have brought them in and so on. But now to block all this corridor here, we are not talking about one or the other tanker. We are talking about huge. We are talking about like hundreds per week, hundreds and tankers. So the question is, if we will going to block all this corridor, I think that will be the real escalation, and we'll see the escalation as well on military level. So we are not going to do it alone.
What do you make of France's decision to discuss expanding its nuclear umbrella across Europe? Is this something that you welcome?
Yeah, we welcome that in the meaning of as an additional nuclear deterrence for NATO. We are the NATO member and we are under the nuclear deterrence umbrella. We have been always open about the different talks and discussions. And now if France is proposing additional capabilities, they must be tied together with the NATO because they cannot be like competing capabilities. And this nuclear deterrence is very important. And now as well, we are discussing this tranche, what is actually the real vision and what will happen and what are the proposals and so on. So we are very much open for these discussions and consultations. But it must be additional what NATO already have.
I interpreted what France was doing as a tacit signal that perhaps Europe is preparing for, or even now is contemplating a world where they don't have the US nuclear shield, that NATO is not functioning the way we've enjoyed NATO functioning for the past decades. Isn't France in a position to potentially replace that US umbrella or no?
I don't believe that it will happen, but it's not secret that the US is pushing Europe more to take responsibilities. I haven't seen as well any kind of like negative reactions from US side about this French initiative. I think that France is talking to US as well about that. And there is nothing bad that Europe is actually taking more responsibilities about the security as well and the military capabilities. We agreed last year in The Hague to invest now 5% GDP, and Europe is doing more as well. Why not about the nuclear deterrence? Because France is the only country in Europe who has the independent capabilities. UK nuke is connected to US and NATO. So I don't see that there is like a replacement question, but there is the message that Europe is able actually as well on nuke capabilities to take more responsibility. But the nuclear deterrence is something different if you're talking about troops or, this kind of level. For US as well, I don't see that the US somehow would like to withdraw the nuclear umbrella from Europe because this is a strategical issue. And having more capabilities about that in Europe is a good thing for US as well.
We have seen some other European states talk about potentially acquiring nuclear capability. Do you think, well, one, is that desirable in Estonia's view that you have a more nuclear Europe? And two, is it something that is necessary going forward, given the dangers in the world that we're seeing?
Actually, in real life, I don't believe it is happening soon because this is very costful. This is technologically very, very difficult and so on. Of course, more countries in Europe as well, they're talking about it, that they should have as well the independent and their own nuclear capabilities. But it's not, so easy. It's really, really costly. So Poland is talking about that. There has been some talks in Germany, but I think that it is not going to happen in Germany. But we have this NATO frame, so there is no point to to start to build up their total independent capabilities, but it's up to their government. But what we see is a debate in Europe about nuclear deterrence as well. And yesterday we got the news that even Finland is going to change the laws because they were very conservative since 1970s about nuclear, not only, of course, military, but as well as an energy. And now they're changing the laws about being more flexible about that. So you can see as well that there is a change in Europe about this.
And do you broadly support it? I mean, I'm interested to note that your answer there was not about fearing nuclear proliferation, which is what most people come at this question from that angle. You're just simply saying the reality that it's very difficult and costly and would take a lot of time. But do you support the idea of a more nuclear Europe, or would you worry about more nuclear weapons, full stop?
I don't. I'm not worried about this. I'm really supporting anything which is making Europe stronger on military level as well, more independent in the meaning that we should have more capabilities, really, because Europe has been like a lazy old fat cat during the last more than 20 years, and really believed in that this is now the end of history times, and we always said that this is not. Russia will remain a threat, will be aggressive. So, and now this is like some kind of like wake up call. I hate the word wake up call because we have had every morning these kind of calls. But the case is that Putin was not that woke up Europe. It was actually President Trump who said that you must start paying for your defense. And also you must take more responsibilities. And Estonia has been on that position already years. So that's why I'm always really very positive about any kind of talks, even on nuclear level, because we are not afraid of Russia nuclear escalation. Putin is just using that and using our fears. Western part of the world is always afraid of Russian aggression and also escalation. And if Putin is having a bad days, in the meaning more pressure, then he always finds some new technology, which is, he's publicly putting on the table and saying that now this is maybe the next level of capabilities. But actually, for Putin as well, using the tactical nuclear weapon is militarily nonsense. But politically, it's a suicide. I think that India, China, many other countries will turn the back to Russia. So we cannot be afraid. And also we need to have self-confidence. And it's up to us to increase our capabilities, not up to Putin to decide what we do.
You've said in the past that you'd be happy for Estonia to host nuclear-capable weapons delivery systems. Would you be happy to host the weapons themselves? And I mean, noting what you described there about that radical shift in Finland, how far would Estonia go?
You should be more precise about what I said. I said that Estonia has never had any kind of restrictions about this nuclear, but I said as well that tactically, there is no point to locate nuclear weapons so close to the border. So we are not working on that to get nuclear weapons to Estonian territory. It's not up to us. But it depends on what kind of defense plans NATO has. And we have a nuclear deterrence umbrella under our territory. So there's no.
And when you say tactically, there's no point, is that because it would be too much of a provocation to put them so close to each other?
It's not. I'm not talking about provocation. I'm talking about military planning. I'm talking about practicalities. Because people should look the map and witness that from the Russian border to the sea, all our territory is only 200 kilometers. So there is no need for the nuclear weapon location to this entire territory. You can cover it already, where it is right now. So the talks are not about where to locate them. So it's not the case. The case is that if we are increasing, if you are exercising, we are more part of the surveillance and whatever. Nuclear systems are not so easy. People think that this is just one rocket and then everything is happening. It's a very complex, different domain. And of course, we are able to be ready to be part of that. So these talks where the nuke is located, this is much more like strategic communication. And there is no need for that right now, if we're talking from an Estonian perspective.
So I'm a big admirer of Estonia's military readiness. You guys do the talking and walk the walk, and you even had to raise taxes which I imagine was very unpopular with the public to pay for your security. How do you feel about this ongoing dynamic now between the White House and some members of Europe, particularly in Western Southern Europe, where they just don't seem to be willing to do what is required, as you guys have shown, which is arm up and get your military spending up now, not waiting, and certainly not waiting for Donald Trump to take NATO and things like this to the brink. Whose side do you fall on in that argument?
As I said before as well, we are very supportive about this change what we had last year in The Hague about defense spendings, and of course we expect that everybody will be committed. But the case is that this 5% is not actually 5% of NATO spendings. It's 3.5% military spendings, and then 1.5% something which is additional, like supportive. But Estonia is doing this year already 5.2 probably about these real investments, about military capabilities.
So can I just clarify that? That's 5% real spending. You're not putting 1.5 to bridges and roads and things.
No. If we add this as well, Estonia is doing, I think, maybe like 8 or 9% already.
Oh, wow. That's really impressive.
This is something what we are talking in real life. But for us, this percentage is, of course, very important. But we're talking year 2035. So this is too long time. What we are following is actually what we agreed already 2 years ago in Vilnius NATO summit. These are the regional defense plans, which are real things. And these capability targets must be fulfilled. And this is exactly what we call as well in Ankara now, the NATO summit, the member states look into these capability targets, because if you look that the capability targets, these caps must be fulfilled, this is a real thing. So everybody can talk about different GDP percentages, but for us, this is very practical thing. And we increased our defense spendings not because of getting this 5% for President Trump, but because we are really speeding up to fulfill all these caps, what we need to have full-scale new defense plans of NATO for our region. And we're talking about the new concept. And before, we had mainly the concept that if Russia is invading our region, then NATO will fight back, and then the territories will be gained back. But now we start fighting from the first second and bring this defensive action to Russian territory. And this is totally different thing. So we must be ready from the first second. And that's why we need to speed up our defense investments. And the question is not only about money. The question is about the capabilities of the defense industry. And we don't see actually this kind of revolutionary increase of the capabilities and production in Europe. What we see is that Ukraine is a huge opportunity for Europe as well, because they are able to produce, they are able to innovate. And that's why I'm always saying that we need Ukraine as well. Ukraine needs us right now. So that's the problem as well. Money is not the problem even as much, but these capabilities. Even US is not able to produce as much as we must. We can buy, and this is a real problem for the western part of the world.
So let's get specific. Spain is obviously the poster boy for this argument that's going on. They signed up to the target, but have said, Pedro Sanchez, the Prime Minister, has said he's just not going to do what Trump says. Is this, I mean, what is your message to a fellow EU NATO member acting in that way?
I was in Spain, a bilateral visit just a week ago, and we were talking about this. So I understand their society as well, because this defense spending has been always very critical topic there. But I explained as well that Europe needs that. And what can I do? This government must make their own decisions. Their arguments were that if they are talking about capability targets, then Spain is following. So they are not talking about this GDP percentage, but also the real capabilities. But my message has always been not only for Spain but everybody else that let's be clear. The GDP figure is this honest figure, which is actually measuring how much your economy and people are investing to defense. And that's why this equal burden sharing is really important. But of course, we are advocating for that, but mainly we are focusing on what we can do, and we are doing a lot.
So I was in Madrid for a week last year on a deep dive, and a senior government figure said to me one of the reasons, well, they were very disparaging actually about this NATO target. And they said, just wait and see. There's a bunch of countries that won't ever reach this target. They've just told Trump to please and appease him now, but they're kicking this down the road. I have to say, looking across Europe, you guys are the standouts and the outliers in Poland and Germany. But there's a lot of countries, including the UK, who have not set out how they plan to get here. They are balking at the idea of raising taxes or cutting welfare to pay for extra defence spending. Do you think that Spain's actually got a point there?
Yes, we saw even 15 years ago, or where it was when we decided that 2% of GDP investments in NATO. And not all countries are even now there. So, of course, this kind of political play is there and game. But I think that the governments must think as well that the threat from Russian side is real. And also, if you're talking about what is happening in Middle East and also everywhere, so we must invest more heavily. So we are advocating for that. We are explaining, but mainly we need to focus what we can do. And also, as I said many times already, we do a lot. And the main thing is to focus on the real capabilities. So, of course, UK is a core country in the meaning of the NATO location to Estonia together with France. So when we expect, of course, that the UK is investing more heavily to its defense, but these talks are there. I'm the Foreign Minister of Estonia, so I can only explain that your troops are here in a good position and also protecting UK from Estonia. Because if anything is happening with us, so it is very directly happens at the same time in London. So we are connected. So this kind of responsibility must be shared.
Do you think that Trump wrecked NATO when he threatened to invade Greenland?
Trump has been very clear after the last summit in The Hague that he will be committed to NATO. And of course, somehow that Trump threatened Greenland, actually, we're talking about a NATO member, Denmark. It even more woke up Europe somehow. And now we are not talking about this military, using the military force, but it's still there. Now Denmark has talks with US about Greenland, but now NATO is taking more responsibility, and probably will see as well that this Arctic mission or whatever we call it, it will happen. But if there is any kind of concerns about Greenland security from Russia or China, it must be protected in the frame of NATO. So, and we are ready to support that.
Do you think Article 5 stands? Do you think Trump would come and fight for Europe if Article 5 is activated?
I don't believe that, really. It's my personal opinion that actually there is no support in US about that. It was totally unpopular policy in US. I mean, Congress, Senate. If you read about the public polls, so there is no US people who are actually supporting this kind of idea to use the military force against the other NATO ally. So I don't believe it will happen. I don't believe it will happen. We just need to have some kind of other solutions, and also Denmark and Greenland is not against if the US wants to increase their troops there, because they have had a lot more troops in these bases what they have in Greenland. So this is not a problem. So that's why I don't believe that the US never will really use the military force there.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Last time we spoke, we discussed, and I'm kind of very proud about this, it was a joint effort, but we spoke about potentially non-NATO countries joining in a boots on the ground scenario in Ukraine, a Western boots on the ground in Ukraine. That's since become this thing we call the Coalition of the Willing. I'm not sure it's the best name, but Australia has very promptly signed up Now, we don't know what it is and we don't know when it will be deployed, but there is an argument about whether to deploy that coalition of the willing now before any ceasefire to try and deter Putin from attacking Ukrainians, or wait until a ceasefire is brokered, which looks increasingly unlikely day by day. What is your view about the role of the coalition of the willing and what it should actually be doing and when?
They're talking about the coalition of the willing, then we are actually talking about the security guarantees for Ukraine. And now I'm repeatedly say that the best security guarantee, which is most efficient as well, is a full membership of NATO to Ukraine. But we don't see it right now. So I don't see as well any kind of willingness even to discuss to send this kind of a coalition of the willing troops into Ukraine right now when the war is going on. And also Ukraine doesn't want as much as I know. But if the ceasefire is coming, then we must offer Ukraine real working security guarantees. And that's why Estonian government made as well last March, a year ago, decision that if the coalition of the willing together is able to locate the boots on the ground as a security guarantee and put the skin in the game, we must be, and we are ready. We have even located our units precisely which they will be.
What would Estonia send?
We'll send the combat troops in where we have a company level and also some supportive elements. So we know exactly what we send and together with other allies. But it's not there. It's not yet there. It's not politically there, but also, I mean, from the coalition of the willing side, but also on military level. There are only a couple of countries who are ready to participate. So it's not ready. And that's why we say always that it's not one-way road that we offer something to Ukraine. We see as well that Ukraine, the largest military force in Europe, in our region, who really successfully is fighting against Russia, they will as well offer us the security guarantees. They will be our security guarantee in the meaning of Russian probable aggression in the future. So we must understand that as well. And this is why I'm explaining it everywhere I'm going. Please don't see Ukraine as just using this our security guarantees, but they are actually heavily and practically as well the security guarantee for us in the future. We need to understand that concept.
To turn that coin over the other side, when I was in Ukraine last week, I kept hearing this, and it was the first time I'd ever heard it being said out loud. But I heard several Ukrainians, including commanders, saying, Europe better watch out, because if we're absorbed by Russia, Russia will take our army and use it to fight the rest of Europe. And you will have one of the most dangerous armies because we're so battle-hardened and ready and capable that Europe's seen. That sent chills down my spine when I thought about it like that. But I think that they do have a point, and it completely reinforces what you were just saying.
Theoretically, of course, we can think like this, that if Russia is taking control over Ukraine, then Russia is controlling their army. But the army is not only, equipment. Army is about people. And I never believe that the Ukrainians now, after all these atrocities that Russia has been doing, will be just, somehow under Russia and not doing anything and going to fight against Europe. It will never happen. So, but of course, the point there, what you were told, is that if Ukraine is falling, then Europe will be in huge trouble, because Ukraine is really fighting and not winning us time, and they are not somewhere, away. They're just part of Europe. That is always what I'm telling, that we must understand that Ukraine is actually a huge opportunity for Europe for long-term peace. Because all these gray areas or the neutrality regions between NATO, European Union and Russia is always green light for Russia to continue. And in practical life, we see that Ukraine, even not being supported 100% from the western part of the world, we are not doing anything practical in the meaning of being part of this conflict. We're not sending troops in, we're not fighting, we're sending equipment, money and political support. But even then, Russia is not able to have any kind of breakthrough. So we need to understand that Ukraine is our existential question. If Ukraine is falling, then Europe will be in deep trouble in real life. And I'm not talking about this because I'm Estonian Foreign Minister and we are on the border. I'm talking about whole Europe. Even now, supporting Ukraine, but not being in under this aggression, practically, we all in Europe, we are paying already the price. Every person feels that already. But can you imagine in London, in Paris, I don't know, in Spain, wherever, that what if Russia is continuing, if Ukraine is falling real life, then this price will be practically very high. So this is exactly the point I take from your talks last week in Ukraine.
Let's move to next week. You're heading to Australia. What is your message to Australia and why are you going there?
Australia is really doing a great job in the meaning of supporting Ukraine practically. Even they're far away, they understand definitely that this is very important for the security of Europe and also for Australian security. And as you mentioned before as well, that they have been giving very clear sentences and positions that the coalition of the willing, if it is working, that Australia is participating actively. My message is encourage them. Of course, we have lots of Estonians there to meet our community, but we have one special topic is people don't know in the world, and even in Estonia, they don't know that outside from China, Estonia is producing the largest scale of rare earth metals and magnets.
Really?
And yeah.
I had no idea.
Absolutely, but it's well kept secret. But now after China has been putting the restrictions on the export, and also now, they gave US and Europe as well a year to deal with that. We are in the spotlight of US and also European Union interests, because this is existential question. We know exactly how to fight the war against Russia, but now China is using this momentum to dictate the conditions about rare earth metals and also the magnets and all this kind of industry. And that's why we have a very practical talks with Australian government as well to establish or guarantee that these rare earth metals and magnets not only will proceed to produce in Estonia, but also increase heavily, because our goal is to have the largest center of excellence and production of the rare earth metals and magnets in Europe at least. And we have these technologies and innovation already since actually the Soviet times, because Soviet Union nuclear program started from here, and this is experience what we have.
How fascinating. So you're looking for Australian investment or collaboration or joint ventures? What is it?
But there is already a big company which is partly owned by the Australia, but we are talking about this chain. It's not only production; it's about resources. It's about but Australia has lots of resources, but also the experience, and we have this cooperation already years with Australia as well on scientific, the science level, So that's something very practical we do with Australia.
Are you part of the US-led Critical Minerals Coalition? I think this is probably the only 5-star policy I'd give the Trump administration. It's a great piece of work trying to set up a rival supply chain line to China's dominance.
Yeah, we are there, and also we already years actively participating there. Now I see as well there's a huge attention on this question from President Trump's administration, and we are working closely with them as well. And as well, the European Union Commission has been speeding up with its initiatives, because be honest, the European car industry and all these industries is really depending on China, and this is not a good thing. So I see as well there is no competition, cannot be competition between Europe and US. We need to work together, and this is exactly our Estonian government position, because technologically, we are very much advanced and we have a huge part of this capabilities in Estonia. And for us as well, this is like the security policy part of that, because these factories are in the northeast, very close to the Russian border. And that's why as well, we need to have like a strategic investments to there and enlarge, because for us, this is not only business, it's as well the part of our security policy. And I can say as well that we have developed as well during the last 20 years in new technologies about how to get out the rare earth metals from this waste, which is coming from miners and lots of stuff what we have here. And not only practically, as a factories, but also the knowledge and technologies. And this is something which is giving us as well leverage globally.
When I last spoke to you, it was, I think, more than a year ago. You weren't very strong about China's role in the Ukraine war. With time gone by, and we've seen the level of support that China has given Russia and Iran and North Korea, have you changed your views about China and what you think it represents to Europe in terms of security threats?
No, I have not changed, because we see more and more that China is really supporting Russia war against Ukraine, even if they are not, practically part of that. They are enabling it economically. They are giving more and more technologies for Russian war machine. I was in last November in China. I had a bilateral visit there, and I had a long meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister, and I was very clear about that as well. That if China wants to stop the war, there's only one phone call to Kremlin, because China is owning Russia more and more economically and also politically. And now we see that Iran is not able to support Russia anymore. So it's about China, who is really, really behind Russia economically and politically, even if China is talking publicly that they are following international law and United Nations Charter and so on. If they want to have a peace really in Ukraine, then it's very easy to have one phone call and cut the support for Ukraine, for Russia, and Putin will be in trouble within a couple of days.
And I imagine, was that Wang you were speaking with, your counterpart? Yeah. And did he explain why he doesn't make that call?
He said that China is not supporting Russia war against Ukraine and this public sector, and they cannot do anything. So we know this rhetorics already.
I mean, I can hear the eye roll in your voice. I mean,
yes,
how do you take that? You
don't
don't believe
it. We all know that China is supporting. By that, they can have more and more control over Russia, and also they keep the western part of the world busy. This is very, very cynical policy in the meaning, but it's reality. China, they have 1,000-year plan for their own interests, and they are a big and huge and very powerful country. So, and from their perspective, Putin is doing this bad work in the meaning they don't need to do it.
It's an interesting dynamic. We spend a lot of time discussing why Trump can or can't stop this war, but really maybe the answer is that China can and can't. And should our efforts be focused more towards how we could ever convince China to stop the war?
Yes, we are trying to do it, but China is following their own path, their own plans, their own interests, and they're taking more and more leverages globally. They are investing, they are buying lands, islands, stuff. Their influence is increasing. So we see it. And so that's the real deep concern. We have a normal relations with China, but I said very clearly to my colleague as well that if you want to have a good relations with Europe, then you need to understand that Russia is an existential threat for us. And if you have your friend is having existential threat from somebody else, then and you're supporting that, so you cannot have trustful relations between each other. It's impossible. So, but it's about China. We have been very clear. Estonia have no strategic investments from China. We cut our strategical public solutions technologically from China already years ago. So that's why I can tell exactly to our friends in China what is our view about supporting Russia.
Well, Margus Tsahkna, safe travels to Australia. I hope the trip is a resounding success, and I look forward to seeing you in Tallinn hopefully soon.
Yes, thank you very much. I really do hope that this time everything is happening because my visit was postponed already because of all part. But now I do have we have a successful visit. We are struggling here as well. We are organizing as a foreign service our people back from the Middle East. It's really complex right now, so it's 24/7 work. And I do though hope that mostly everything is happening before I'm going to my visit to Australia. But I'm really looking forward to see you as well, of course, Latika, in Tallinn. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
You've been listening to Latika Takes with me, Latika Burke. You can find my work at latikambirk.com and this podcast where you find all your podcasts. See you next time.